The bullet missed Clara Sullivan's head by 3 inches. She dropped to the frozen ground, shielding her youngest daughter with her body, while Victor Crane's men laughed from horseback. "Next one won't miss, widow. You got till sundown tomorrow." That was the moment Jesse Thornton rode into Silver Creek. That was the moment everything changed. 4 hungry children, a mother with nothing left but her pride, and a stranger who'd forgotten how to feel anything until he saw her stand up from that frozen dirt and spit in her enemy's face. Stay with me until the end, and comment below what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Bum. The gunshot cracked through the morning air. Jesse Thornton yanked his horse to a stop, hand already on his colt. 50 yards ahead, a woman lay in the snow, curled around something small. A child. She was protecting a child. 3 men on horseback circled her. One of them was reloading. "I said you got till sundown tomorrow, Mrs. Sullivan." The shooter's voice carried clear in the frozen air. "Mr. Crane's been patient. Too patient, you ask me." The woman lifted her head. Blood trickled from a cut on her cheek where she'd hit the ground, but her voice came out steady as stone. "You tell Victor Crane he can go straight to hell." One of the riders laughed. "Hear that boy's widow's got spirit." He walked his horse close enough to kick snow in her face. "Mr. Crane likes spirit. Maybe when you're out on the street with them brats you'll remember his offer. Might not be so proud then." Jesse moved. He didn't think, didn't plan. 3 years of silence and solitude vanished like smoke, and suddenly he was the man he used to be. The man who'd worn a badge, the man who'd buried that badge with his wife and son. His horse covered the distance in seconds. "Right away." Jesse's voice cut through the cold. "Now." The 3 men turned. The shooter, young, stupid, mean-eyed, grinned. "Well, look here. Got ourselves a hero." "You got yourself a choice." Jesse's hand rested easy on his gun. "Ride away breathing, or don't ride away at all." "Mister, you know who we work for." "Don't care." "Victor Crane owns this town, owns the sheriff, owns the—" "I said I don't care." Jesse nudged his horse forward, positioning himself between the riders and the woman. "What I care about is you shot at a woman holding a child. Where I come from, that earns a man a grave." The shooter's grin faltered. His partners exchanged looks. One of them, older, smarter, cleared his throat. "Jake, let's go." "But Mr. Crane said." "I know what he said, but this ain't worth dying over." The older man looked at Jesse with the wary respect of someone who recognized danger. "We'll tell Mr. Crane the message was delivered. That's all he asked." Jake, the shooter, hesitated. Pride warring with survival. Survival won. "This ain't finished, widow," he spat. "Sundown tomorrow. You ain't paid up by then, we're coming back. And your new friend here won't be around to save you." They rode off, snow flying from their horses' hooves. Jesse waited until they disappeared over the ridge. Then he dismounted and crouched beside the woman. "You hurt?" She was already sitting up, checking the child in her arms. A tiny girl, maybe 3 years old, with brown curls and huge, terrified eyes. "Rose baby, you okay? You hurt anywhere?" The little girl shook her head, clutching a rag doll so worn it was barely holding together. "Mama, the loud noise scared Dolly." "I know, sweetheart. I know." The woman pressed a kiss to her daughter's hair, then looked at Jesse. "I'm fine. Just a scratch." "That scratch is bleeding pretty good." "I've had worse." She stood without his help, lifting the child onto her hip with practiced ease. Now that she was upright, Jesse could see her clearly. Small, barely reaching his shoulder. Hair the color of autumn leaves coming loose from its pins. And eyes brown with flecks of gold that held more fire than fear. "Thank you," she said, "for stepping in. That was either very brave or very stupid. Probably both." "Probably." She studied him. "You're not from around here. Just passing through? Then you should keep passing." She started walking toward town, the child's head resting on her shoulder. Victor Crane doesn't forget. You made enemies today, stranger. Made them before. Still breathing. She stopped, turned back. Something flickered across her face. Curiosity, maybe. Or hope she was trying hard to kill. Why did you help me? You don't know me. Didn't need to know you. Just needed to see 3 men with guns threatening a woman and a baby. Most people would have looked the other way. Most people in this town do. I ain't most people. For a long moment she just looked at him. Then the little girl Rose lifted her head from her mother's shoulder and stared at Jesse with solemn eyes. Mister, are you a cowboy? The question hit him like a fist to the chest. His son had asked him that once. Papa, are you a cowboy? He'd laughed and swung the boy onto his shoulders and said yes, and the world had been bright and full of promise. Yeah, sweetheart. His voice came out rough. I'm a cowboy. Cowboys are brave. Some of them. Are you brave? Jessie looked at this tiny girl with her worn-out doll and her too thin coat and her mother's stubborn chin. I try to be. Rose nodded, satisfied. Then she held out her rag doll. This is Dolly. She's brave too. She's not scared of anything. That's so. Mama made her for me. Mama's brave too. She's not scared of the bad men. Rose, honey, hush now. The woman's cheeks flushed. But it's true, Mama. You said we don't bow to bullies. You said, I know what I said. She shifted Rose to her other hip, met Jessie's eyes. I'm Clara Sullivan. I teach at the school here. Or I did until Mr. Crane decided to make my life impossible. Jessie Thornton. Well, Mr. Thornton, thank you again. But you should leave Silver Creek. Today if you can. Victor Crane will hear about what you did within the hour, and he doesn't take kindly to interference. What about you? What about me? Sundown tomorrow. That's what they said. What happens if you can't pay? Clara's jaw tightened. That's not your concern. Maybe I'm making it my concern. Why? Good question. He'd asked himself the same thing. Why had he charged in? Why was he still standing here? He should get his supplies and ride out before this town's troubles became his own. But Rose was watching him with her mother's golden eyes, and Clara was standing there with blood on her face and defiance in every line of her body. And somewhere deep in the cold, dead center of his chest, something stirred. Because I got nowhere else to be, he said, and maybe I'm tired of riding past trouble instead of through it. The cabin was worse than Jessie expected. 1 room for 5 people, cracks in the walls stuffed with rags, a stove so small it couldn't heat half the space. And cold. God, it was cold. Ice lined the inside of the windows, and the fire had burned down to barely glowing embers. 3 more children waited inside. Mama! A boy, maybe 9, scrambled up from the floor where he'd been huddled with 2 girls. Mama, we heard a gunshot. Are you okay? Is Rose? We're fine, Sam. Everyone's fine. There's blood on your face. Just a scratch. Clara set Rose down, and the little girl immediately ran to her siblings. Grace put some water on to boil. Lily, get the bandages. The oldest girl, 12, maybe 13, with her mother's auburn hair, moved to obey, but her eyes stayed fixed on Jessie. Who's he? A stranger who helped us. He's not staying. Actually? Jessie stepped inside, closed the door against the wind. I might stay a bit, if that's all right. It's not. Mama. The boy. Sam tugged on Clara's sleeve. Mama, there's no more wood. We burned the last of it this morning. And Lily's been coughing all day, and Rose's hands are turning blue again, and... I know, Sam. Clara's voice cracked just for a second. Then she pulled herself together. I know. I'll figure something out. How? Grace's voice was sharp. You said that yesterday. You said it last week. And we're still freezing, still hungry, still... She stopped, glanced at Jessie, pressed her lips together. Grace. I'm sorry, Mama, but I'm tired of pretending everything's fine when it's not. Jessie looked around the cabin. At Sam, trying to be brave. At Lily, the blonde one coughing into her sleeve. At Rose clutching her rag doll and shivering. At Grace standing rigid with anger and fear. At Clara, who carried the weight of 4 lives on shoulders too thin for the burden. "Where's your woodpile?" he asked. Clara blinked. "What woodpile? You said it's empty." "Where?" "Behind the cabin, but." "And where's the nearest deadfall? Dry wood, branches, anything that'll burn." Sam stepped forward. "There's a grove past the church, sir. Lots of dead trees. Papa used to take me there before he—" The boy stopped, swallowed hard. "Show me." "Mister, you don't have to," Clara started. "I know I don't." Jessie was already heading for the door. "Sam, you coming?" The boy looked at his mother. Something passed between them. Permission, maybe, or hope. "Yes, sir." Sam grabbed his thin coat. "I'm coming." They worked until Jessie's arms screamed and Sam's small hands bled through his worn gloves. The boy didn't complain. Not once. He hauled what he could carry, gathered kindling, and talked the whole time about his father, about the mine, about how everything fell apart after the accident. "Mama tried to get money from the mining company," Sam said, dragging a branch through the snow. "But they said it was Papa's fault. Said he was careless." "That's a lie, Mr. Jessie. My papa was the most careful man in the whole world." "I believe you." "Mr. Crane bought our building after Papa died. Tripled the rent. Mama says he did it on purpose, 'cause she wouldn't—" Sam stopped, face reddening. "I know what she wouldn't do." "It's not fair." The boy's voice shook. "None of it's fair. Mama works so hard. She teaches all day and takes in mending at night and barely sleeps, and we're still gonna lose everything. We're still gonna—" "Hey!" Jessie stopped, crouched down to Sam's level. "Look at me." Sam looked. His eyes were wet, but he wasn't crying. Probably learned young that crying didn't help. "Your mama's doing everything she can. Sometimes that's not enough, and that ain't nobody's fault. But you know what? What? Sometimes help shows up when you least expect it. Like you?" Jessie didn't know how to answer that. He wasn't help. He was a ghost with a gun, drifting from place to place, running from memories that followed, no matter how far he rode. But looking at this boy, this brave, scared, determined boy, Jessie felt something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Purpose. "Yeah, son. Like me." By the time they hauled the wood back, the sun was setting, and the temperature was dropping fast. The cabin was warmer when they entered. Not much, but enough. Clara had worked some kind of miracle with the dying embers, and the children were clustered around the stove, no longer shivering. "Sam!" Lily ran to her brother, threw her arms around him. "You were gone forever. I thought the wolves got you." "There ain't wolves in town, silly." "There might be." "Mr. Jessie." Grace approached him, her expression unreadable. "Can I talk to you outside?" Clara started to protest, but Grace was already opening the door. Jessie followed. The cold hit them like a wall. Grace hugged herself, breath pluming white, but her eyes were fierce. "I don't know who you are," she said. "I don't know why you're helping us, but I need you to understand something." "I'm listening." "My papa was a good man. The best man I ever knew. He worked himself half to death for us, and then he died. And Mama's been trying to hold us together ever since." Grace's voice hardened. "If you're here to take advantage of her, if you're like those other men who come around with their offers, I'll make you sorry. I don't know how yet, but I will." Jessie looked at this girl who'd become a mother to her siblings at 12 years old. Who'd watched her father die and her family fall apart and still stood here threatening a grown man because she loved her mama. "That's fair," he said. "And if I was that kind of man, you'd have every right to make me sorry." "Are you that kind of man?" "No." "How do I know?" "You don't. Not yet." Jessie met her eyes. But I'm gonna prove it. Might take some time, but I'll prove it. Grace studied him for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. Okay, I'll be watching. I'd expect nothing less. They went back inside. The soup was mostly water. The bread was 3 days stale. And Jesse ate like it was a feast. Because it was. Not the food, the company. Sam talking with his mouth full about horses and gunfights. Lily showing Jesse her drawings, crude scratches on old newspaper, but presented with such pride. Rose falling asleep in her chair, Dolly clutched tight. And Clara watching him with those golden eyes trying to figure him out. "You're good with children," she said quietly while the kids cleaned up. "Had some practice once. Your own, a son, Daniel. He was 6 when the cholera took him." Jesse's voice stayed level. He'd had 3 years to learn how to say the words without breaking. His mama went 2 days later. I buried them together under the big oak behind our house. Then I burned the house down and rode away. Clara's hand covered his, just for a moment, just long enough. "I'm sorry." "Me too." "Is that why you helped us? Because we reminded you of what you lost?" "Maybe. Or maybe I'm just tired of watching people suffer when I can do something about it." He looked at her children. His children now. Something in him whispered, though that was crazy. "They're good kids. All of them. They're everything. Everything I have left." Clara's voice dropped. "Which is why I have to ask you to leave." "What?" "Tomorrow when Crane's men come back, they'll be looking for you. If you're here, they'll hurt you, maybe kill you, and if something happens to you because of me..." She shook her head. "I've got enough ghosts. I don't need another." "What about you? What happens when they come and you can't pay?" "I'll figure something out." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I have." Clara stood moved to the window, stared out at the darkness. "I've been fighting for 2 years, Mr. Thornton. 2 years of watching everything slip away no matter how hard I try. Maybe it's time to stop fighting. Maybe it's time to take whatever scraps Crane offers and be grateful." "You don't mean that." "Don't I?" She turned, and Jessie saw the exhaustion underneath the defiance, the despair she'd been hiding from her children. "I'm tired. God, I'm so tired. And my babies are hungry and cold and scared, and I can't. Her voice broke. Jessie crossed the room in 3 strides. "Don't." Clara held up a hand. "Don't be kind to me right now. I'll fall apart, and I can't afford to fall apart." "Then don't fall apart. Get angry instead." "Angry?" "Victor Crane is a bully, a coward with money. You've been letting him win because you're too busy surviving to fight back. But you've got more strength in your little finger than he's got in his whole body." "Strength doesn't pay rent." "No, but I can." Clara went still. "What?" "I can pay your debt. Whatever you owe, I'll cover it. Tomorrow morning before Crane's men come back." "Why would you do that?" "Because I've got money I don't need and nowhere to spend it. Because your kids deserve better than freezing in a 1-room cabin. Because..." He stopped, not sure how to finish. "Because why?" "Because when I rode into this town, I was dead inside. Been dead for 3 years. And today, for the first time since I buried my family, I felt something." He stepped closer. "Looking at your kids. Hearing Rose ask if I'm brave. Watching Sam work beside me without complaining even though his hands were bleeding. Seeing Grace threaten me because she loves you so much she'd fight a stranger to protect you." Clara's eyes were wet. "That doesn't explain anything." "It explains everything. You've got something worth saving here. A family, a home, a future. And I've got nothing but ghosts and regret." Jessie took her hands. "Let me help, please." "And what do you get?" "I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe a chance to remember what it feels like to matter." Clara stared at him. The fire crackled. Outside, the wind howled. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." pay the debt, save my children, and then we figure out the rest. Jesse didn't sleep. He lay in the small barn behind Clara's cabin, wrapped in his bedroll, listening to the wind and thinking about everything that had happened. Around midnight, he heard it. Crying. Soft, muffled drifting through the cabin's thin walls. Clara. He got up, moved to the window, and looked toward the cabin. Lamplight flickered behind the frost-covered glass. Through the cracks, he could see her silhouette sitting at the table. Head in her hands, shoulders shaking. She cried for a long time. Jesse watched, and something inside him made a decision. Something that had nothing to do with logic or sense. He wasn't just going to pay her debt. He was going to fix this. All of it. He just had to figure out how. Dawn came gray and bitter. Jesse was at the bank when it opened, standing at the counter with cash in hand. "I'm here to pay Clara Sullivan's debt." The clerk, young, nervous, glanced toward a back office. "Sir, I'll need to get Mr. Crane." "Don't need Crane, just need a receipt." "But sir." "The debt. What is it? $40.50. Jesse counted out bills. "Here's 60. That covers what she owes plus next month. Write me a receipt." "I can't do that without Mr. Crane's approval." "Then get his approval." The clerk scurried away. Minutes later, Victor Crane emerged from his office. He was shorter than Jesse expected. Softer. The kind of man who'd never worked a day with his hands but thought money made him powerful. "Mr. Thornton." Crane's voice was silk over steel. "I heard you caused some trouble yesterday. Heard your men shot at a woman holding a baby." "A misunderstanding. They were simply delivering a message." "Some message." Crane smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "You want to pay Mrs. Sullivan's debt? How noble. How touching." He leaned on the counter. "But here's the thing. I've decided the debt has increased. Interest, you understand. Penalties. Administrative fees." "How much?" $200. Jesse didn't blink. "Fine." For the first time, Crane's smile faltered. "Excuse me." $200. That's your price." Jesse pulled out more bills, counted them slowly. "Done." Crane's face went red. "You think you can just— This isn't about money." "No. It's about a woman who told you no." Jesse set the cash on the counter. "Must have stung a man like you. All that money, all that power, and a poor widow wouldn't give you the time of day." "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know exactly what I'm talking about. I've seen your kind before. Small men who buy big things to feel important. Problem is, you can't buy respect. Can't buy dignity. Can't buy a woman who'd rather freeze than let you touch her." Crane's composure cracked. "Get out of my bank." "Not without my receipt. I'll have you arrested." "For what? Paying a debt?" Jesse smiled. "Go ahead. Call your sheriff. Let's see how that plays out in front of the whole town." Long silence. Then Crane turned to his clerk. "Write the receipt." His voice shook with rage. "And you, Mr. Thornton, this isn't over. Not by a long shot." Never thought it was. Clara was teaching when Jesse found her. The schoolhouse was small but warm, filled with children's voices reciting multiplication tables. Through the window, he could see her at the front patient and calm a different woman than the one who'd cried alone last night. He waited until the lesson ended and the children spilled out for lunch. "Mr. Thornton." Clara appeared in the doorway, surprise flickering across her face. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Paid your debt this morning. All of it." She went pale. "What?" Crane tried to jack up the price. "I paid it anyway." He handed her the receipt. "You're clear. He's got no claim on you or your property anymore." Clara stared at the paper like it was written in a foreign language. "I don't understand. This says $200. I only owed 40. Crane's creative with numbers. Doesn't matter. It's done." "Jesse, that's a fortune. You can't just— I can't accept." "Already did. Money's gone." He shrugged. "Was just sitting in my saddlebag anyway. Doing nothing. Now it's doing something. Clara's hands trembled. The receipt shook. Why? Her voice cracked. Why would you do this for me? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. You could have ridden out yesterday and never looked back. Why? Jesse thought about how to answer. The truth was complicated. The truth was, he didn't fully understand it himself. Because you remind me of someone, he said finally. My wife, Mary. She had that same look you do, like she'd fight the whole world if she had to. Like giving up wasn't something she knew how to do. What happened to her? Cholera, like I said, her and Danny both. Clara was quiet for a moment. Then, tell me about them. So he did. He told her about Mary's laugh, how it could fill up a room. About Danny's obsession with horses, how the boy wanted to be a cowboy like his papa. About the morning he'd woken up to find them both burning with fever, and the week of hell that followed, and the 2 graves he'd dug with his own hands. When he finished, Clara was crying. Not loudly. Just tears sliding down her cheeks, quiet and steady. I'm so sorry, she whispered. Me too. Is that why you're here, because we're some kind of replacement second chance? No. Jesse shook his head. You're not a replacement. Nobody could replace them. But maybe, he hesitated. Maybe I'm tired of being dead. Maybe seeing you fight for your kids reminded me that some things are still worth fighting for. Clara wiped her eyes. And now you've paid my debt. Crane has no hold on me anymore. What happens now? I don't know. I suppose I could ride out. Let you get on with your life. Is that what you want? The question hung between them. No, Jesse said quietly. That's not what I want. Then what do you want? He looked at her, this fierce, exhausted, beautiful woman who'd been fighting alone for too long. I want to stay, help you rebuild, be there for you and the kids. He paused. But only if you want me to. Clara studied him for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She laughed. Jesse Thornton, you are the strangest man I've ever met. That a yes or a no? I don't know what it is. I just know that for the first time in 2 years, I feel like I can breathe. She folded the receipt, carefully tucked it into her pocket. Stay, at least for a while. Let's see what happens. Yes, ma'am. That night, Crane made his move. Jesse was in the barn checking on his horse when he heard the hoofbeats. Multiple riders coming fast. He grabbed his rifle and stepped outside. 6 men on horseback. Crane at the front, his face twisted with rage. You think you won, Thornton? You think paying off some debt changes anything? Thought it might? I own this town. I own the sheriff. I own the judge. By tomorrow morning I'll have charges filed against you. Assault, trespassing, threatening a bank officer. Crane smiled. You'll hang before spring. Jesse didn't move. That's a lot of work for a woman who said no to you. Crane's smile vanished. This isn't about her. Sure it is. Every bit of it. You wanted her, she refused, and now you're throwing a tantrum like a child who didn't get his toy. I'll destroy you. Men have tried. Jesse raised his rifle, not pointing it at anyone, just making sure they saw it. Some of them are dead now. You'd shoot me in front of witnesses. If you give me reason. Jesse's voice went flat, cold. See, here's what you don't understand, Crane. I've got nothing to lose. No family, no home, no future I care about. But you've got everything to lose. Your money, your reputation, your life. He smiled. So ask yourself, how much is this woman worth to you? Is she worth dying over? Long silence. The riders shifted nervously. One of them muttered something about not signing up for this. Crane's face worked through several emotions. Rage, calculation, fear. Fear won. This isn't over, he spat. You hear me? This isn't... Yeah. Jesse lowered the rifle. Ride on home, Crane. Sleep on it. Maybe you'll wake up smarter." They rode away. Jesse stood in the darkness for a long time, watching them go, thinking about what came next. He'd made an enemy tonight. A real one. Crane wouldn't stop, not until he'd gotten his revenge or gotten himself killed trying. Which meant Jesse had a choice. Leave now before things got worse, or stay and see it through. He thought about Clara's tears, about Sam's bleeding hands, about Rose asking if cowboys were brave. Wasn't much of a choice, really. Morning came cold and clear. Jesse found Clara at the schoolhouse again, but this time she wasn't teaching. She was sitting on the steps, staring at nothing. "Heard what happened last night," she said without looking at him. "Heard you faced down Crane and 6 of his men." "News travels fast. In Silver Creek, lightning fast." She finally turned to face him. "He's not going to stop, is he?" "No." "So what do we do?" "I've got an idea, but you're not gonna like it." "Tell me anyway." Jesse sat down beside her. The wood was cold through his coat, but he barely noticed. "Crane wants you because you're vulnerable. Single woman, no family, no protection. Easy target." He met her eyes. "What if you weren't single anymore?" Clara went still. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying, marry me." "You're insane." "Probably." Jesse didn't look away. "But think about it. You become my wife, you're not alone anymore. Crane can't come after you without coming after me. And he's already learned that's a bad idea." "Jesse, you can't just— people don't just—" Clara stood paced away from him. "This is crazy. We've known each other 2 days. Long enough to know I'd die to protect you and those kids. Long enough to know you're the strongest woman I've ever met. Long enough to know that when I'm with you, I feel alive for the first time in 3 years. That's not love. No, maybe not yet, but it could be, given time." He stood, moved toward her. "I'm not asking for love, Clara. I'm asking for a chance. A chance to build something together. A chance to give your kids a father and myself a family. And if it doesn't work, then we'll figure that out too. But at least we'll be figuring it out together." Clara's eyes searched his face, looking for lies, looking for doubt, finding neither. "The children will have a home, a real home. I've got a ranch up north, small but solid. Room for all of them, room to grow. I can't just uproot them." "You can if it means saving their lives. You can if it means giving them a future." Jesse took her hands. "Say yes, Clara. Take the leap. Let me catch you." Silence. The wind blew snow across the schoolyard. Somewhere in town, a dog barked. "Yes." The word came out so soft, Jesse almost missed it. "Yes. Yes." Clara laughed, a broken, disbelieving sound. "God help me, yes? I'll marry you." Jesse pulled her close, and for the first time in 3 years, he felt hope. The word spread through Silver Creek like wildfire. By noon, half the town knew that the widow Sullivan was marrying the stranger who'd faced down Victor Crane. By supper time, the other half had formed opinions about it. "She's lost her mind," they said at the general store. "He's after her property," they whispered at the saloon. Desperate woman making a desperate choice. The church ladies clucked over their sewing. Clara heard it all. Every whisper, every sideways glance, every pitying shake of the head. She pretended not to notice. "Let them talk," she told Jesse that evening, standing in her tiny cabin with her children watching from the corner. "I've been the subject of gossip since Thomas died. One more scandal won't kill me." "You sure about this?" Jesse asked, not doubting, just giving her one last chance to back out. "Once we do this, there's no undoing it." "I'm sure." Clara's voice was steady, but her hands trembled as she folded laundry. "I stopped being sure about anything 2 years ago. But I know this: my children need stability. They need safety. They need someone who'll fight for them. She looked at him. You've already proven you'll do that. Mama, Sam's voice piped up from across the room. Does this mean Mr. Jesse is going to be our pa? The question hung in the air. Jesse looked at Clara. Clara looked at her children. Grace stood rigid by the window, arms crossed, face unreadable. Sam sat on the floor with Rose in his lap, both of them watching with wide eyes. Lily had stopped drawing and was clutching her pencil like a lifeline. Mr. Jesse is going to be my husband, Clara said carefully. That means he'll be part of our family. But what you call him, that's up to you. Nobody's going to force anything. I want to call him Pa, Sam said immediately. I miss having a pa. Sam? It's okay, Mama. I know he's not really our pa, but maybe he could be like a PA. Someone who teaches me stuff and protects us and... The boy's voice cracked. I just miss having someone. Jesse crossed the room, crouched down to Sam's level. Tell you what, son, you call me whatever feels right. Today, tomorrow, next year doesn't matter. I'm not going anywhere, and I'm not trying to replace your father. But if you want someone to teach you stuff and protect you, I can do that. Sound fair? Sam nodded, eyes bright. What about you, Lily? Clara asked gently. The blonde girl chewed her lip. Will you read me stories? Papa used to read me stories. I'd like that, Jesse said. What kind of stories do you like? Adventure stories, with pirates and treasure and happy endings. I know a few of those. Lily smiled, the first real smile Jesse had seen from her. Okay. Then you can be my almost pa. Almost pa it is. Rose, the youngest, had been silent through all of this. She sat in Sam's lap, clutching Dolly, watching Jesse with those huge, solemn eyes. Rose, honey. Clara knelt beside her daughter. Do you understand what's happening? Rose nodded slowly. Then she held up Dolly. Dolly wants to know if the cowboy will stay forever. Jesse felt his chest tighten. You can tell Dolly that I'm not planning on going anywhere. Promise? Promise. Rose considered this. Then she crawled out of Sam's lap, walked over to Jesse, and held up her arms in the universal gesture of pick me up. Jesse lifted her carefully, and she settled against his chest like she belonged there. Dolly says okay, Rose announced. You can stay. Which left Grace. The oldest Sullivan child hadn't moved from the window. Her face was stone, her arms still crossed, her eyes fixed on something outside that probably wasn't there. Grace. Clara's voice was soft. You haven't said anything. Nothing to say. I know this is hard for you. I know you're angry. I'm not angry. Grace's voice was flat. I'm tired. I'm tired of hoping things will get better and watching them get worse. I'm tired of pretending everything's fine when it's not. She finally turned to face them. And I'm tired of strangers coming into our lives and making promises they can't keep. Grace, you don't know him, Mama. None of us do. He showed up 2 days ago, and now you're marrying him. What if he's lying? What if he's just like all the others? He's not. How do you know? Clara opened her mouth, closed it. She didn't have an answer. How could she? Grace was right. She didn't know Jesse. Not really. She was taking a leap of faith based on gut instinct and desperation. Jesse set Rose down gently and walked toward Grace. You're right, he said. Grace blinked. What? You're right. Your mother doesn't know me. You don't know me. I could be lying. I could be exactly like all the others. Jesse stopped a few feet away, giving her space. So, let me tell you what I do know. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a worn photograph. A woman with dark hair and kind eyes. A boy, maybe 5 or 6, grinning at the camera. That's Mary, my wife. And that's Daniel, my son. Jesse's voice stayed level, but his hand trembled slightly. 3 years ago, cholera swept through our town. Took them both in the same week. I buried them under the big oak tree behind our house, and then I started running. Been running ever since. Grace stared at the photograph. I'm not telling you this for sympathy, Jessie continued. I'm telling you because I want you to understand something. I know what it's like to lose everything. I know what it's like to watch people you love die and not be able to stop it. And I know what your mother's been going through trying to hold this family together all by herself. Then why marry her? Why not just help and leave? Because I'm tired of leaving. Because every town I've passed through, every family I've seen, reminds me of what I lost. And because when I look at you and your brother and sisters, I see kids who deserve better than what life's given them. Jessie tucked the photograph back in his pocket. I can't bring back your father. I can't undo the last 2 years. But I can be here now. I can stand between you and anyone who tries to hurt you. And I can promise not to your mother but to you, Grace, that I will never stop trying to earn your trust. Silence stretched between them. Grace's jaw worked. Her eyes were wet, though she was fighting hard not to let the tears fall. I watched my papa die, she said quietly. Did you know that I was there when they brought him up from the mine? I watched the light go out of his eyes while Mama held his hand. Her voice broke. I can't do that again. I can't watch someone else I care about die. Then don't care about me yet, Jessie said. Keep me at arm's length. Watch me. Test me. Make me prove myself every single day. He held out his hand. But give me the chance to prove it. That's all I'm asking. Grace looked at his hand, at his face, at her mother standing behind him with tears streaming down her cheeks. One chance, Grace said finally. She didn't take his hand, but she didn't turn away either. You get one chance, and if you break her heart, if you hurt any of them, I'll make you pay. I don't care how. Fair enough. Something shifted in the room. Not quite acceptance, not yet, but the possibility of it. A door cracked open that had been sealed shut. Clara wiped her eyes. Well, now that that's settled, we have a wedding to plan. The wedding was set for the following morning. Reverend Whitmore agreed to perform the ceremony despite the short notice and the unusual circumstances. Martha Holbrook, the boarding house owner who'd become Clara's closest friend, insisted on providing a wedding breakfast and helping Clara get ready. I always knew something good would happen to you, Martha said that night, brushing out Clara's hair while the children slept. You've got too much fire in you to be beaten down forever. I'm not sure marrying a stranger to escape a banker counts as something good. Depends on the stranger. Martha met Clara's eyes in the mirror. I've been watching him. The way he looks at you. The way he is with the children. She smiled. That man's not marrying you because he wants something. He's marrying you because he needs something. And I think maybe you need it too. What's that? A reason to stop surviving and start living. Clara thought about that long after Martha left. About Jesse's eyes when he talked about his wife and son. About the way he'd held Rose like she was made of glass and promises. About the quiet strength in his voice when he'd faced down Crane and his men. Maybe Martha was right. Maybe they both needed this. Maybe two broken people could build something whole. She just hoped they didn't break each other worse in the trying. Morning came wrapped in gray clouds and bitter cold. The church was small but warm, heated by a wood stove that crackled cheerfully in the corner. Reverend Whitmore stood at the altar, Bible in hand. Martha Holbrook sat in the front pew, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. The children were arranged beside her, Sam practically vibrating with excitement, Lily clutching a handful of dried flowers she'd insisted on picking, Rose half asleep with Dolly in her arms, and Grace sitting rigid and watchful. Jesse waited at the altar wearing the cleanest clothes he owned, which still weren't very clean. He'd tried to slick back his hair, but it had already escaped in unruly waves. He looked, Clara thought as she walked down the aisle, like exactly what he was, a rough man trying to be civilized for one morning. She loved him a little for that. Just a little. Dearly beloved, Reverend Whitmore began, his voice warm and steady. We are gathered here today in the sight of God to join this man and this woman in holy matrimony. Marriage is not to be entered into lightly, but reverently, deliberately, and in accordance with the purposes for which it was instituted by God. Clara's hands trembled in Jesse's grip. He squeezed gently reassurance without words. Do you, Jesse Thornton, take Clara Sullivan to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and cherish until death do you part? I do. And do you, Clara Sullivan, take Jesse Thornton to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and cherish until death do you part? Clara looked at this man she barely knew, this stranger who'd ridden into her life and turned everything upside down, this ghost who was trying to become human again. I do. Then by the power vested in me by God and the territory of Montana, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Reverend Whitmore smiled. You may kiss your bride. Jesse's hands cupped her face gentle, as if she might break. His eyes asked permission. She nodded barely, and he kissed her. It was soft, brief, almost chaste. But something sparked between them, something neither of them expected. When they pulled apart, Clara's cheeks were flushed, and Jesse's eyes had gone dark. Well, Martha called from the pew. That's a proper kiss if I ever saw one. The children giggled. Even Grace cracked a small smile. And then the church doors slammed open. Victor Crane stood in the entrance, flanked by the sheriff and 2 deputies. Snow swirled around them, and the cold that blasted through the door had nothing to do with the weather. Stop this farce, Crane commanded. This marriage is invalid, and these people are under arrest. Jesse stepped in front of Clara, putting himself between her and Crane. On what charges? Fraud, conspiracy, whatever else my lawyer can dream up. Crane's smile was ugly. Did you think I'd just let you steal what's mine? Clara was never yours. Everything in this town is mine. Everything. Crane nodded to the sheriff. Arrest them. The sheriff, a tired-looking man in his 50s named Tom Bartlett, hesitated. Mr. Crane, I don't know that there's legal grounds. I don't pay you to question me. I pay you to follow orders. Sheriff Bartlett's jaw tightened. Something flickered in his eyes, shame maybe, or the last embers of the man he used to be. Jesse watched that flicker, recognized it. Sheriff, he said quietly, you ever been a real lawman? Before Crane bought you? Bartlett's hand hovered over his gun. What's that supposed to mean? It means I know what you're feeling right now. That sick twist in your gut when you're about to do something wrong, and you know it's wrong, but you do it anyway because it's easier than standing up. Jesse held the man's gaze. I wore a badge for 5 years, Texas Rangers. Saw plenty of good men go bad because they stopped fighting the current. This ain't Texas. No, but right and wrong don't change with geography. Jesse stepped forward. You arrest me and my wife in a church in front of God and these children, and you'll have to live with that for the rest of your life. Every time you look in a mirror, every time you see those kids on the street, you'll remember this moment. The sheriff's hand trembled. Tom, Crane's voice went sharp, do your job. Or don't, Jesse said. Walk away, let us be. And maybe start being the man you used to be before money made you forget. Long silence. The fire crackled. The wind howled outside. Then Sheriff Bartlett did something nobody expected. He took off his badge. Mr. Crane, he said, his voice rough, I've done a lot of things I'm not proud of. Looked the other way when your boys roughed up farmers who couldn't pay. Ignored complaints from women you'd bothered. He set the badge on the nearest pew. But I'm not arresting a man on his wedding day for the crime of loving a woman you wanted. You're finished, Crane spat. I'll ruin you. Probably will. Bartlett straightened his shoulders. But I'll sleep better tonight than I have in years. He walked past Crane out into the snow and didn't look back. The 2 deputies exchanged glances. One of them, young nervous, cleared his throat. Mr. Crane, maybe we should—" "Shut up." Crane's face had gone purple. "Both of you are useless. All of you are useless." He pointed at Jesse. "This isn't over. You hear me? I'll burn your ranch to the ground. I'll see you hang. You'll do nothing." The voice came from behind Crane. A new voice, deep and authoritative. A man stepped through the church doors. Tall, silver-haired, wearing a federal marshal's badge that caught the light. "Victor Crane." The marshal said, "I'm Deputy Marshal William Stone. I've got a warrant for your arrest on charges of fraud, extortion, and conspiracy to commit murder." Crane went white. "That's impossible. I have lawyers. You have the right to remain silent." Marshal Stone nodded to two men behind him, real deputies, federal ones. "Take him." Crane struggled as they grabbed his arms. "You can't do this. I own this town. You don't own a damn thing anymore." The marshal's voice was cold. "We've been building a case against you for 6 months. Witnesses, documents, bank records." He smiled grimly. "Turns out, when you threaten enough people, some of them eventually talk." They dragged Crane out of the church, his threats turning to pleas, his pleas turning to incoherent rage. Then it was quiet. Marshal Stone turned to Jesse and Clara. "Apologies for the interruption. We've been tracking Crane for a while, but we needed him to make a move before we could arrest him." He tipped his hat. "Congratulations on your wedding." "Thank you." Clara managed her voice faint. "I don't understand. How did you—" "Got a telegram 2 days ago from a concerned citizen. Someone who saw what Crane was doing and decided to do something about it." The marshal glanced at Jesse. "Wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you, Mr. Thornton?" Jesse's expression didn't change. "Can't say that I do." Stone's eyes twinkled. "Well, whoever sent it, they did a good thing. Crane's been terrorizing this territory for years. About time someone stopped him." He nodded to them both. "I'll need statements from you later, but for now, enjoy your wedding day." He left, closing the church doors behind him. Silence. Then Sam's voice piped up from the pew. "Mama, does this mean the bad man's gone for good?" Clara looked at Jesse. Jesse looked at Clara. "Yeah, son," Jesse said quietly. "The bad man's gone." Martha Holbrook burst into tears. Lily started cheering. Rose woke up and demanded to know what she'd missed. And Grace walked up to Jesse, studied him for a long moment, and then did something she hadn't done since her father died. She hugged him. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for keeping your promise." Jesse's arms came around her carefully, like he wasn't sure he was allowed. "It's what family does," he said. The word hung in the air. Family. It had been so long since any of them had felt like one. Clara wiped her eyes, gathered her children close, and looked at her new husband over their heads. "Well, Mr. Thornton, what now?" Jesse smiled, a real smile, one that softened the hard lines of his face and made him look almost young. "Now we go home." The ranch was everything Jesse had described and more. It sat in a valley north of Silver Creek, protected by mountains on 3 sides. A sturdy log house with a stone chimney. A barn big enough for horses and cattle both. A creek running through the property, not yet frozen solid despite the cold. The children tumbled out of the wagon before it had fully stopped. "Mama, look!" Sam ran toward the barn. "Real horses." "Can we pick rooms?" Lily asked, already halfway to the house. "I want the one with the window. I want the one next to Lily." Rose toddled after her sister Dolly, bouncing in her arms. Grace hung back, taking it all in with careful eyes. "It's bigger than I expected." "Built it myself," Jesse said, helping Clara down from the wagon. "Took 2 years. Always figured it was too much space for one person." He paused. "Guess now I know why I made it so big." Clara stood in the yard looking at the house that would be her home. At the mountains rising behind it. At her children already exploring like they'd lived here their whole lives. "It's beautiful," she said softly. It's cold and isolated, and the nearest neighbor is 3 miles away. Jesse's voice was matter-of-fact. The winters are brutal, the summers are short, and there's more work than any 10 people could handle. Are you trying to scare me off? I'm trying to be honest. This life isn't easy, Clara. You grew up in town. You're used to people's stores' civilization. Out here, there's just us. Clara turned to face him. Jesse Thornton, I spent 2 years watching my children starve while a monster tried to destroy us. I think I can handle isolation and hard work. She took his hand. Besides just us, sounds pretty good right now. The first night in their new home was awkward. Jesse had given Clara the bedroom, their bedroom technically, though neither of them was ready to address that, while he planned to sleep in the main room by the fire. The children were settled in the 2 smaller rooms, 3 girls in one, and Sam in the other. This is temporary, Clara said, as Jesse laid out his bedroll. You can't sleep on the floor forever. Slept on worse. That's not the point. What is the point? Clara hesitated. They'd avoided this conversation all day, burying themselves in practical tasks, unpacking, settling the children, exploring the property. But now, with the house quiet and the fire burning low, they couldn't avoid it anymore. We're married, Clara said, but we're strangers. I don't know how to... She stopped, frustrated. I don't know what you expect. I don't expect anything. Everyone expects something. I'm not everyone. Jesse stood-faced her. Clara, I married you to protect you, to give your children a home. I didn't marry you to... He searched for the right words. I won't touch you unless you want me to. I won't rush you. I won't pressure you. Whatever happens between us, it happens when you're ready. Could be a month, could be a year, could be never. And you'd be okay with that never. I'd be okay with being part of something again, having people to come home to, hearing voices in this house besides my own. Jesse's voice softened. I've been alone for 3 years. Alone is worse than anything. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. I don't know if I can love you, not the way you deserve. Thomas was your husband. You loved him. Nothing about us changes that. Jessie reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. I'm not asking for love. I'm asking for a chance. Let me earn it bit by bit. Let me prove I'm worth keeping. And if you can't, if I can never, then at least I'll have tried. He smiled, sad and gentle. At least I won't have spent another 3 years running from ghosts. Clara didn't know what to say to that, so she did the only thing that felt right. She kissed him. It wasn't like the kiss at the altar, brief and performative. This was real. Tentative at first, then deeper, then something else entirely. Jessie's hands came up to cup her face, and Clara found herself leaning into him, wanting more, wanting. She pulled back, breathless. I'm sorry, she gasped. I don't know why I... Don't apologize. Jesse's voice was rough. His eyes were dark. Never apologize for that. I'm not ready for... I know. It's okay. He stepped back, gave her space. Get some sleep, Clara. It's been a long day. She hesitated at the bedroom door. Jessie. Yeah. Thank you. For everything. Thank me when you're sure you don't regret it. She went into the bedroom and closed the door. But she didn't sleep for a long time. Neither did he. The first week was a learning curve for everyone. Jessie showed Sam how to care for the horses, and the boy took to it like he'd been born in a saddle. Lily discovered the barn cats and immediately adopted all 3 of them. Rose found a corner of the main room and declared it her castle, filling it with her drawings and Dolly's furniture made from scraps of fabric. Grace remained watchful, but gradually warmed. Jessie caught her smiling at one of Sam's jokes, heard her laugh when Lily's cats escaped and chaos ensued. Saw her help Clara with the cooking without being asked. Progress. Slow, but real. Clara and Jessie circled each other like wary animals those first days. Polite, careful, aware of each other in ways that made the air feel charged. They bumped hands reaching for the same dish, caught each other's eyes across the room, looked away quickly pretending they hadn't. The tension built like pressure before a storm. It broke on the seventh night. Jesse was out checking on the horses when he heard Clara scream. He ran, burst through the cabin door, gun drawn, heart pounding, and found Clara standing on a chair pointing at the floor. "Snake," she gasped. "There's a snake." Jesse looked down. A garter snake, harmless no bigger than his forearm, was slithering across the floor toward the warm stove. He holstered his gun, tried not to laugh, failed. "It's not funny. It's a little funny. I hate snakes. I've always hated snakes. Thomas used to tease me about—" She stopped. Her face crumpled. Jesse's amusement vanished. He grabbed the snake, tossed it outside, and returned to find Clara still on the chair, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she said. "I don't know why I'm crying. It was just a snake. Just a stupid snake, and I—" "Hey." Jesse reached up, lifted her down from the chair. "Hey, it's okay." "It's not okay. Nothing's okay. I'm in a strange house with a strange man, and my children are depending on me, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I miss Thomas so much sometimes I can't breathe." The words tumbled out, all the grief and fear she'd been holding back. Jesse held her while she sobbed, rubbing circles on her back, saying nothing because there was nothing to say. When the storm passed, Clara pulled back, wiping her eyes. "I'm sorry. You didn't sign up for a hysterical woman having a breakdown over a snake. I signed up for you. All of you. The strong parts and the scared parts and everything in between." Why do you keep saying things like that? Why do you keep being so good?" Jesse's mouth quirked. "Maybe I'm trying to make up for all the years I wasn't." "What does that mean?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then he moved to the fireplace, stared into the flames. "After Mary and Daniel died, I went a little crazy, drank too much, fought anyone who looked at me wrong, got myself shot twice, and honestly, I was hoping for a third time." His voice was flat. "Took me 2 years to stop wanting to die, another year to figure out how to live. Coming here, building this place, it was supposed to be the start of something new. Instead, it was just another way of hiding." Clara moved to stand beside him. "And now? Now I've got 4 kids calling me almost Pa, and a wife who screams at snakes, and somehow that feels more like living than anything I've done in 3 years. He looked at her. "You asked why I keep being good. Maybe it's because you make me want to be better." Clara didn't know who moved first. Maybe they moved together. But suddenly they were kissing again, and this time neither of them pulled away. Jesse's hands tangled in her hair. Clara's fists gripped his shirt. The kiss deepened, grew hungry, grew into something that felt like the beginning of everything. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Clara's decision was made. "I'm ready," she whispered. "Clara, I'm ready." She took his hand, placed it over her heart. "I don't know if this is love yet, but I know I want to find out. With you." Jessie searched her face for doubt. Found none. "You're sure?" "I'm sure." He lifted her in his arms and carried her to the bedroom, kicking the door shut behind them. Outside, the wind howled and the snow fell, and the world went on without them. Inside, 2 broken people began putting each other back together. Morning came soft and golden. Clara woke to find Jessie already up, standing at the window, looking out at the snow-covered landscape. "Regrets?" she asked softly. He turned. His smile was gentle. "Not a single one." "Me neither." She rose, wrapped herself in a blanket, and went to stand beside him. He pulled her close, and they watched the sun rise over the mountains in comfortable silence. "Mama." A knock at the door. Sam's voice. "Is it breakfast time?" Clara laughed. "Give us a minute, sweetheart." "Okay, but Rose is hungry, And Lily says the cats are hungry, and I'm hungry too. 10 minutes. They heard small footsteps retreating. Back to reality, Jesse said. Yes. Clara kissed him softly. But maybe reality isn't so bad anymore. They dressed quickly and emerged to find all 4 children waiting at the table watching them with various expressions. Sam was grinning. Lily was giggling. Rose was oblivious, focused on her breakfast, and Grace was watching them with something that might have been hope. "Sleep well?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral. "Very well," Clara said, feeling heat rise to her cheeks. "Good." Grace turned back to her porridge. "You looked like you needed rest." Jesse caught the girl's eye. She gave him the smallest nod, acknowledgement maybe. Acceptance possibly. Progress. After breakfast, while the children bundled up to go outside, Grace pulled Jesse aside. "I still don't trust you completely," she said. "But Mama smiled this morning, a real smile. I haven't seen that in 2 years. I'll try to give her reasons to keep smiling." "See that you do." Grace hesitated. "And Jesse." "Yeah. Thank you for making her happy, even if it's just for now." "I'm hoping it's not just for now." Grace studied him. Then slowly she extended her hand. "Maybe I was wrong about you," she said. "Maybe you're not like the others." Jesse shook her hand. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving you right." The winter settled in around them, deep and white and quiet. Jesse worked the ranch with Sam at his heels, teaching the boy everything he knew about horses and cattle and survival. Clara turned the cabin into a home, filling it with warmth and laughter and the smell of good cooking. Lily practiced her drawings until the walls were covered with them. Rose named all the barn cats and held tea parties for them with Dolly, and Grace slowly, carefully began to let go of her armor. By January, she was calling Jesse by his first name instead of Mr. Thornton. By February, she was asking him to check her schoolwork. By March, she was sitting next to him by the fire in the evenings, listening to his stories about Texas and the Rangers and the wildlife he'd lived before. "Did you ever kill anyone?" she asked one night. Clara shot Jesse a warning look, but he answered honestly. "Yes." "Did they deserve it?" "Some of them. Some of them were just desperate like your mama was, doing bad things because they didn't see any other way." "Do you feel guilty?" "Every day." Jesse met her eyes. "That's the difference between good men and bad ones. Bad men don't feel guilty. Good men carry it with them forever." Grace was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. "I'm glad you're here," she said softly. "I'm glad Mama married you." It was the closest to acceptance she'd ever come. That night, after the children were asleep, Clara curled against Jesse in their bed. "She's warming up to you." Slowly. That's how Grace does everything. Slowly and carefully. Clara traced patterns on his chest. "She's been hurt so much. First Thomas, then Crane, then all the men who came around with their offers." She shuddered. "I never told her about those, but she knew. She always knew. She's strong, like her mother. She's had to be." Clara propped herself up on one elbow. "Jesse, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "I love you." The words hung in the air. Jesse went still. "Clara, I know we said we'd take things slow. I know it's only been 3 months, but I woke up this morning and watched you sleeping, and I realized I don't want to imagine my life without you in it." Her voice trembled. "I love you. All of you. The broken parts and the healing parts and everything in between." Jesse pulled her close, buried his face in her hair. "I love you too," he said roughly. "Been loving you since the day you spit in Crane's face. Just didn't know how to say it." Clara laughed through her tears. "That's when you fell for me, when I was covered in snow and bleeding, and probably looked like a drowned rat." That's when I knew you were worth fighting for. He kissed her forehead. That's when I knew I was going to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you. Outside, the last winter storm of the season howled against the cabin walls. Inside, two people who'd thought they'd never love again held each other tight and let themselves believe in happy endings. Spring came to the valley like a promise kept. The snow melted, revealing green grass underneath. The creek swelled with runoff, clear and cold and full of fish. The cattle that had survived the winter grew fat on fresh pasture, and the horses grew restless, eager to run after months of confinement. Jesse stood on the porch one April morning, watching Sam try to rope a fence post. The boy had been practicing for weeks, determined to master the skill before summer. "You're dropping your elbow," Jesse called. "Keep it tight." Sam adjusted, threw again. The rope sailed wide. "Dang it." "Language." "Sorry." Sam coiled the rope, tried again. This time it caught. "I did it, Jesse. I did it." "Good work. Now do it 100 more times until you can do it in your sleep." Sam groaned but kept practicing. Jesse smiled, something he found himself doing more and more these days. 3 months ago, smiling had felt foreign. Now it came easy. Clara appeared beside him, 2 cups of coffee in hand. "He's getting better. He's a natural, got good instincts. He worships you, you know, follows you around like a shadow." "Could have worse shadows." Jesse took the coffee, kissed her forehead. "You sleep okay?" "Better than I have in years." Clara leaned into him. "I keep waiting for something to go wrong, for the other shoe to drop." "Maybe there's no other shoe." "There's always another shoe." Jesse didn't argue. He'd lived long enough to know she was right. Happiness was fragile. Peace was temporary. The world had a way of shattering both when you least expected it. He just hoped this time would be different. The rider appeared around noon. Jesse saw him first, a dark shape against the spring sky, moving fast toward the ranch. His hand went to his gun before he even thought about it. "Clara, get the children inside." She didn't question him, didn't hesitate. She gathered Sam from the corral, called for Grace, and Lily scooped Rose into her arms and herded them all through the door. "Stay inside," she told them. "Don't come out until Jesse or I say it's safe." "Mama, what's wrong?" Grace's voice was sharp with fear. "I don't know yet. Just stay here." Clara grabbed the rifle from above the door and came back outside to stand beside Jesse. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do." Her jaw was set. "Whatever this is, we face it together." The rider slowed as he approached, and Jesse's tension eased slightly. It was just one man, older, wearing a federal marshal's badge. Marshal William Stone, the same man who'd arrested Crane. "Mr. Thornton, Mrs. Thornton." Stone dismounted, tipped his hat. "Sorry to ride in unannounced. I've got news, and it couldn't wait." "What kind of news?" Stone's face was grim. "Victor Crane escaped custody 3 days ago." The words hit Jesse like a physical blow. Beside him, Clara went pale. "How?" "Bribed a guard. We've got men searching, but he disappeared like smoke." Stone looked between them. "I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Before he escaped, Crane made threats. Said he'd see you both dead before he ran. Said he'd burn this ranch to the ground and everyone in it. He knows where we are. Has to assume he does. The man's got money hidden away, resources we haven't tracked down yet. If he wants to find you, he will." Clara's hand found Jesse's. Her grip was ice cold. "What do we do?" "I've got deputies searching. We'll catch him eventually. But in the meantime, you need to be careful. Don't go anywhere alone. Keep weapons close. And if you see anything suspicious, anything at all, you send word immediately." "How long?" Jesse asked. "How long until you find him?" "Could be days. Could be weeks." Stone's voice was heavy with frustration. "I'm sorry. I wish I had better news." After the marshal left, Clara and Jesse stood in the yard, neither speaking. The cheerful spring morning had turned cold. "He's coming for us," Clara said finally. "Isn't he?" "Probably. The children are safe. I won't let anything happen to them, to any of you." Clara turned to face him. "Don't make promises you might not be able to keep." "I'm making a promise I'll die keeping." Jessie cupped her face in his hands. "Clara, I lost one family. I won't lose another. Whatever it takes, however long it takes, I will keep you safe." "And who keeps you safe?" "You do." He kissed her softly. "You already have." They told the children that evening. Not everything, not the worst of it, but enough. A bad man had escaped from jail. They needed to be careful. Stay close to the house. Tell an adult immediately if they saw strangers. Grace's face went hard. "It's Crane, isn't it?" "Yes. I thought he was supposed to be locked up forever." "He was supposed to be. But sometimes bad people find ways around the rules." "So what do we do?" Jessie looked at Clara, then at the 4 children sitting around the table. Sam was trying to look brave. Lily was clutching one of her barn cats like a shield. Rose was half asleep, unaware of the danger. And Grace, oldest, wisest, was watching Jessie with eyes that demanded honesty. "We stay alert," Jessie said. "We stay together, and we trust each other. If anyone sees anything strange, you tell me or your mother immediately. No exceptions." "What if he comes while you're not here?" Sam asked. "Then you hide. There's a root cellar under the barn. Remember I showed you where? You take your sisters and you go there, and you don't come out until your mother or I come for you." "But what about you and Mama?" "We can take care of ourselves. Your job is to take care of each other." Jessie leaned forward. "Can you do that?" "Sam, can I count on you?" The boy straightened. "Yes, sir. You can count on me." "Good man." That night Jessie didn't sleep. He sat by the window with his rifle across his knees, watching the darkness for movement that didn't come. Clara found him there at midnight. "You need to rest." "Can't." "Jessie, every time I close my eyes I see it. Fire, screaming, everything I love going up in smoke." His voice was raw. "I can't go through that again, Clara. I won't survive it." She knelt beside him, took his hand. "Then we survive together. Whatever comes." "I should have killed him. That day in the church when he showed up to stop the wedding, I should have put a bullet in him right there. And then you'd be in prison, and we'd be alone, and nothing would be different, except I wouldn't have you. You'd be safe. I wouldn't have you." Clara's voice was fierce. "Don't you understand? You're not just protection, Jessie. You're not just safety. You're everything. The children love you. I love you. Losing you would destroy us just as surely as Crane could." Jessie closed his eyes. "I'm scared, Clara. For the first time in years, I've got something to lose, and I'm terrified of losing it." "Then don't." She pulled him close. "Fight for us. Fight with us. And trust that we're strong enough to fight too." The days passed in tense waiting. Jessie taught Clara to shoot properly, not the basic competence she'd had before, but real marksmanship. He taught Grace too, despite Clara's initial objections. "She's 12 years old. She's old enough to protect her brother and sisters if it comes to that." Jessie's voice was flat. "I pray it doesn't, but if it does, I want her ready." Grace took to the lessons with grim determination. Within a week, she could hit a target at 50 yards. Within 2, she could reload faster than most men. "How do you feel?" Jessie asked her after one practice session. "Scared." Grace's voice was steady despite the word. "But also ready. If anyone tries to hurt my family, I'll stop them." "Let's hope it doesn't come to that." "But if it does, then you do what you have to do, and you don't feel guilty about it afterwards." Sam wanted to learn too, but Jessie drew the line at 9 years old. Instead, he taught the boy other things. How to move quietly. How to hide. How to get to the root cellar fast and barricade the door from inside. "If something happens," Jessie told him, Your job is to get your sisters to safety, not to fight, not to be brave, just to run and hide and keep them safe until help comes. But what if help doesn't come? Then you wait until it's safe, and you take them to the Hendersons' farm. You know where that is, 3 miles east. That's right. You get there, and you tell Mr. Henderson what happened, and you stay there until I come for you. Sam's lower lip trembled. You will come for us, won't you? Always. Jesse pulled the boy into a hug. I will always come for you. 2 weeks passed, then 3. The tension in the house wound tighter every day. Clara jumped at shadows. Jesse slept in shifts, never fully resting. The children played quieter than before, sensing the fear their parents tried to hide. And then, on a night in late April, Crane came. Jesse woke to the smell of smoke. He was on his feet before his eyes were fully open, grabbing his rifle, his pistol, his boots. Through the window, he could see orange light flickering. The barn was on fire. Clara, Clara, wake up! She was already moving, already reaching for her own rifle. The children. Get them to the cellar, now! Jesse ran outside. The barn was fully engulfed, flames reaching toward the sky. The horses were screaming. He could hear them trapped in their stalls, and for a moment he froze, torn between saving them and protecting his family. A gunshot cracked the night. Jesse dove behind the water trough as a bullet splintered the porch railing where he'd been standing. Another shot. Another. Someone was in the trees to the north, using the fire as cover. Come on out, Thornton! Crane's voice high and wild with triumph. Come out and die like a man! Jesse didn't answer. He was counting shots, tracking positions. At least 2 shooters in the trees. Maybe more. Crane had hired help. Inside the house, he heard Clara's voice, calm but urgent. Grace, take them, now. Don't stop for anything. The back door opened, and Jesse caught a glimpse of small figures running toward the barn, toward the cellar entrance on the far side. Grace was in front, clutching Lily's hand. Sam was behind, carrying Rose. Another shot rang out, not aimed at Jesse, aimed at the children. Sam stumbled, cried out. Something inside Jesse went cold and quiet. He rose from behind the trough and began to fire. His first shot took the nearest shooter in the chest. The man fell from his hiding spot dead before he hit the ground. Jesse was already moving, rolling, coming up behind a different piece of cover. His second shot missed, but his third found its target. Another man down. Sam! Clara's scream split the night. She was running toward her son, heedless of the bullets flying around her. Jesse saw what happened next like a nightmare in slow motion. Crane emerged from the trees not 50 feet from Clara, his pistol raised and aimed at her back. Jesse fired. The bullet caught Crane in the shoulder, spinning him around, but didn't drop him. The man was mad with rage and vengeance, beyond pain, beyond reason. He raised his pistol again. Jesse pulled the trigger. Click. Empty. Clara turned, saw Crane, raised her own rifle. They fired at the same moment. Crane's bullet went wide, throwing dirt at Clara's feet. Clara's bullet caught him in the chest center mass, exactly where Jesse had taught her to aim. Victor Crane fell. He didn't get up. Silence rushed in to fill the void left by gunfire. The barn continued to burn, but the shooting had stopped. Jesse ran to Clara, grabbed her, held her. Are you hurt? Sam. Her voice was barely a whisper. Sam's hurt. They found the boy lying in the grass, Grace kneeling beside him, pressing her hands against his leg. Blood seeped through her fingers, dark in the firelight. He pushed Rose out of the way. Grace said, her voice shaking. The bullet was going for Rose, and he pushed her out of the way. Sam. Clara dropped to her knees. Sam, baby, can you hear me? The boy's eyes fluttered open. Mama, did I do good? You did so good, sweetheart. You did so good. Clara was crying, hands joining Grace's on the wound. Stay with me, okay? Stay awake. It hurts. I know, baby. I know. Jesse tore strips from his shirt, made a tourniquet. The wound was bad, but not fatal. Through and through, missing the bone. The boy would live if they could stop the bleeding. Rose. Sam's voice was weak. Is Rose okay? She's fine. Jesse leaned close. You saved her son. You saved your sister. Sam smiled, pale and shaky, but genuine. I told you I could count on me. Yeah, Jesse's voice broke. Yeah, you did. It took 2 hours to put out the barn fire. Most of it was lost, but Jesse managed to save the horses, pulling them out one by one through the smoke and flames. His arms were burned, his lungs ached, and his eyes stung with tears he refused to shed. Clara had carried Sam inside, cleaned and bandaged his wound. The bullet had gone through the meat of his thigh, painful and bloody, but mercifully simple. He'd be on crutches for weeks, scarred for life, but he'd walk again. He'd run again. The other children were in shock. Lily hadn't stopped crying. Rose kept asking why there was so much noise. And Grace sat silent and still staring at her blood-covered hands. Grace. Jessie crouched in front of her. Grace, look at me. She looked up. Her eyes were hollow. You did everything right. You hear me. You got the others to safety. You kept pressure on Sam's wound. You saved his life. I shot at someone. Her voice was distant. When they tried to follow us to the cellar, I shot at them. Did you hit them? I don't know. They ran away. Then you protected your family, just like I taught you. I didn't want to. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I just wanted them to stop. Jesse pulled her into his arms. I know, sweetheart. I know. It's over now. It's all over. Marshal Stone arrived at dawn with a posse of deputies. They found Crane's body where it had fallen along with 3 other men, 2 dead and 1 wounded. The wounded one talked, spilling everything, how Crane had hired them, how he'd planned to burn the ranch and kill everyone inside, how he'd promised them gold if they succeeded. It's done, Stone told Jesse and Clara as his men hauled away the bodies. Crane's dead. His accomplices are either dead or headed to prison. You're safe now. Truly safe. Clara stood on the porch watching the deputies work. She hadn't slept. None of them had. Are we? She asked. Are we ever truly safe? Stone didn't have an answer for that. After everyone left, after the children were finally asleep, and the burned-out barn stood smoking against the morning sky, Jesse and Clara sat on the porch in silence. I killed a man, Clara said finally. You saved your family. I shot him in the chest. I watched him fall. She looked at her hands. I don't feel guilty. Is that wrong? No. I feel relieved. I feel grateful. I feel like I'd do it again 1,000 times to protect my children. Her voice wavered. What does that make me? A mother. Jesse took her hands in his. A fighter. A survivor. I've never killed anyone before. I've killed more than I can count. Does that make you afraid of me? Clara looked at him for a long moment. No. It makes me grateful you're on my side. They sat together as the sun rose, watching their damaged ranch slowly come back to life. The horses were in a makeshift corral. The chickens had somehow survived, and inside 4 children were sleeping alive and safe because their parents had been willing to fight for them. We'll rebuild, Jesse said. The barn, the fences, all of it. We'll make it better than before. Together. Always together. Clara leaned into him. Jesse. Yeah. I'm glad I married you. I'm glad I took the chance. Even after all this. Especially after all this. She looked up at him. You told me once that you wanted a chance to prove you were worth keeping. I think you've proved it. Jesse kissed her softly. I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving it. Every single day. I'll hold you to that. Inside the house, Sam woke from a fitful sleep and called for water. Grace got up to help him, even though she was exhausted. Lily curled around Rose, both of them tangled together like puppies. Outside, Jesse and Clara watched the sun climb higher, painting the mountains in shades of gold and rose. The air smelled like smoke and spring and new beginnings. They'd been tested, they'd been broken, they'd been burned. But they were still standing, still together, still a family. And that Jesse thought was worth everything. The weeks that followed were the hardest Clara had ever known. Not because of the physical work, though there was plenty of that. Rebuilding a barn, mending fences, replacing everything they'd lost in the fire. Not because of the sleepless nights, though, those came too filled with nightmares and cold sweats and the phantom smell of smoke. No, the hardest part was watching her children try to heal. Sam bore his wound like a badge of honor during the day, showing off his bandages to anyone who'd look, telling and retelling the story of how he'd saved Rose. But at night, Clara heard him crying into his pillow, heard him calling out for his father, his real father, the one who'd died in the mines and left him to become a man too soon. Lily stopped drawing. The girl who'd covered every surface with her artwork now sat with blank paper and empty hands, staring at nothing. When Clara asked her what was wrong, she just shook her head and walked away. Rose had nightmares. Every night without fail, she'd wake up screaming, clutching Dolly so tight, the old rag doll was starting to come apart at the seams. Clara or Jesse would rush in, hold her, rock her back to sleep, only to repeat the whole thing a few hours later. And Grace. Grace was the worst because Grace showed nothing at all. She went through the motions of daily life with mechanical precision. Helped with chores, looked after her siblings, spoke when spoken to. But something behind her eyes had gone dark, and Clara didn't know how to reach her. "She's shutting down," Clara told Jesse one night after the children were finally asleep. "She's building walls so high I can't see over them." She saw things no 12-year-old should see. She did things no 12-year-old should have to do. "She shot at a man. She watched me kill another." Clara's voice cracked. "What kind of mother puts her daughter through that?" "The kind who does whatever it takes to keep her family alive." Jesse pulled her close. "Grace is strong, stronger than she knows. She'll come through this." "How can you be sure?" "Because she's got you, and you're the strongest person I've ever met." Clara wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that time would heal, that the nightmares would fade, that her children would somehow emerge from this darkness whole and unbroken. But every time she looked at Grace's empty eyes, doubt crept in. The breakthrough came unexpectedly, as most breakthroughs do. It was a Sunday afternoon, 3 weeks after the attack. Jesse was working on the new barn frame with Sam, watching from a chair, his leg still bandaged, but healing well. Lily was inside pretending to read, but really just staring at the pages. Rose was napping, exhausted from another night of bad dreams. And Grace was gone. Clara noticed first. She'd been looking for Grace to help with supper, but the girl was nowhere in the house, not in the barn, not in the yard, not anywhere Clara could see. "Jesse?" Clara's voice pitched high with fear. "Jesse, I can't find Grace." He dropped his hammer immediately, was at her side in seconds. "When did you last see her?" "An hour ago, maybe 2. She said she was going to read in the loft, but she's not there." "Sam, stay with your sisters. Don't leave the house." "But don't leave the house." Jesse and Clara searched the property, calling Grace's name, their voices growing more desperate with each passing minute. The memories of Crane's attack were too fresh, the fear too raw. What if someone else had come? What if Grace had been taken? They found her at the creek. She was sitting on a rock at the water's edge, knees drawn to her chest, staring at the rushing current. She didn't look up when they approached. "Grace?" Clara ran to her, dropped to her knees, grabbed her daughter's shoulders. "Grace, you scared us half to death. Why didn't you tell anyone where you were going?" Grace didn't answer, didn't move, didn't even blink. "Grace, look at me." Clara's voice softened, fear giving way to concern. "Sweetheart, what's wrong? Talk to me." For a long moment, nothing. Then Grace spoke, her voice barely audible above the creak. "I keep seeing his face. Whose face? The man I shot at. He turned around and looked right at me before he ran. He was scared, Mama. He was scared of me. Grace's voice cracked. I made another person afraid. I pointed a gun at a human being and pulled the trigger. What does that make me? Clara's heart shattered. Oh, sweetheart. You and Jesse keep saying I did the right thing. You keep saying I protected my family, but I don't feel protected. I feel broken. Tears streamed down Grace's face. I used to think I knew who I was. I was Grace Sullivan. I was a big sister and a good student and someone who helped people. Now I'm Grace Sullivan, who shot at a man and watched her mother kill another. How do I go back to being the person I was before? Jesse crouched beside them. He didn't touch. Grace didn't crowd her, just made himself present. You don't, he said quietly. Grace looked at him startled. You don't go back to being who you were before. That person's gone. She died the night of the fire, same as a part of me died when I buried my wife and son. Jesse, Clara started, but he held up a hand. Let me finish. He met Grace's eyes. You don't go back, but you do go forward. You take the broken pieces of who you were and you build someone new, someone stronger, someone who knows what they're capable of when it matters most. But I don't want to be someone who hurts people. You didn't hurt people. You protected people. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. Jesse's voice was firm. That man you shot at, he came to burn our home and murder your family. He made a choice, and you responded to that choice. You didn't start anything. You finished it. Grace was quiet for a long moment. The creek rushed past, indifferent to human pain. Does it get easier? She asked finally. The memories, the dreams, the feeling like you're broken inside. Yes. Not right away and not completely, but yes. Jesse reached out, slowly, gave her time to pull away. She didn't. He took her hand. You've got something I didn't have when I was broken. You've got family. People who love you. People who'll help you carry the weight until you're strong enough to carry it yourself. I don't feel strong. You will. I promise you, Grace, one day you'll look back on this and realize how strong you were. How strong you are. Grace stared at their joined hands. Then slowly she leaned into Jesse's shoulder. I'm tired, she whispered. I'm so tired of being afraid. Then rest. Let us be afraid for you for a while. Clara wrapped her arms around them both, and the three of them sat there by the creek holding each other, letting the water carry away some of the weight they'd been dragging. It wasn't a cure. Grace would still have bad days, still have nightmares, still struggle with what she'd seen and done. But something had cracked open inside her, let some light in, where before there had only been darkness. It was a start. That night, Grace asked Jesse to tell her about Mary and Daniel. They were sitting around the fire, all of them together, Rose already asleep in Clara's lap. It was the first time Grace had initiated a real conversation in weeks. You don't have to, she added quickly. I know it's hard to talk about. No, it's okay. Jesse was quiet for a moment, gathering his thoughts. Mary was the kindest person I ever knew. She could find good in anyone, even people who didn't deserve it. Used to drive me crazy sometimes, the way she'd give second chances to folks who'd already proven they didn't deserve a first one. How'd you meet her? Church social in Austin. I was 23, just joined the Rangers, thought I was pretty hot stuff. She walked right up to me and told me my hat was ugly. Clara laughed. Seriously. Swear to God. Said it looked like something her horse had stepped on. I was so shocked I couldn't think of anything to say, and she just smiled and walked away. Jesse shook his head. Took me 3 months to work up the courage to talk to her again. Another 6 months to convince her to marry me. She sounds wonderful, Grace said softly. She was. And Daniel. Jesse's voice caught. Daniel was the best of both of us. Had his mother's kindness and his father's stubbornness. Used to follow me everywhere, wanted to be a ranger just like his pa. What happened to them? I mean, I know it was cholera, but... Grace, Clara said gently, You don't have to. It's all right. Jessie took a deep breath. It started with a fever. Daniel first, then Mary a day later. The doctor came, did what he could, but in those days there wasn't much anyone could do. Daniel went first. He was in my arms when he died. Mary held on another 2 days, but she knew. She knew she was dying, and all she talked about was Daniel. Making sure I knew how much she loved him. How much she loved me. Tears were streaming down his face, but his voice stayed steady. After they were gone, I went a little crazy. Quit the Rangers, sold everything, started drifting. I told myself I was looking for something, but really I was just running away from the pain. Ran for 3 years straight. Until you found us, Sam said. He'd been listening quietly, his bad leg propped up on a stool. Until I found you. Jessie smiled through his tears. And the funny thing is, I wasn't looking. I rode into Silver Creek for rope and tobacco. Didn't expect to find anything else. Didn't want to find anything else. But you did, Lily said. She'd been so quiet, Clara had almost forgotten she was there. Yeah. I found a family that needed me as much as I needed them. Found a reason to stop running and start living again. Grace was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked, "Do you still miss them, Mary and Daniel?" Every single day. I'll miss them until the day I die. Jessie reached over, took Clara's hand. But missing them doesn't mean I can't love again. Doesn't mean I can't be happy. Mary would have wanted me to be happy. She would have loved all of you. You think so? I know so. Jessie looked around at the children, at Clara, at this family he'd stumbled into by accident and claimed by choice. She would have said you were exactly what I needed, and she would have been right. The fire crackled. Rose stirred in Clara's lap, mumbled something about Dolly, and went back to sleep. Jessie. Grace's voice was small. Yeah, I think I'm ready. Ready for what? To call you Pa. Grace's eyes were wet, but she was smiling. If that's okay. Jessie couldn't speak. He just nodded, pulled Grace into a hug, and held on tight. Clara watched them, her heart so full it hurt. This man who'd ridden into her life like a storm and somehow brought peace. These children who'd been through hell and were still standing. This family forged in fire and held together by love. They were going to be okay. All of them. She believed it now. The next morning, Lily started drawing again. Clara found her at the kitchen table, pencil moving furiously across paper. The image taking shape wasn't like her old drawings, childish scenes of flowers and cats and happy suns. This was something else entirely. It was the fire. The barn burning. Figures running in the darkness. Clara's first instinct was to take the paper away, protect her daughter from reliving the trauma. But something stopped her. She watched instead, silent, as Lily filled in details, shadows and flames, and the shapes of her family. When it was done, Lily looked up. I needed to get it out of my head, she said. It kept going around and around in there, and I couldn't make it stop. But now, she held up the drawing. Now it's on the paper instead of in my head. Does that help? A little. Maybe I'll draw it again tomorrow, and the next day, until it stops hurting so much. Clara knelt beside her daughter, looked at the drawing. It was dark and frightening, but there was something else too. In the corner, barely visible, Lily had drawn 6 figures holding hands, their family together facing the flames. It's beautiful, Clara said, and meant it. It's scary. It can be both. Clara kissed her daughter's forehead. You're very brave, you know that. I don't feel brave. I feel sad and scared and confused. That's what brave people feel. The difference is they keep going anyway. Lily considered this. Then she nodded, picked up her pencil, and started a new drawing. This one had flowers in it, and cats, and a house that wasn't on fire. Progress. Sam's leg healed faster than anyone expected. By the end of May, he was off crutches and walking with only a slight limp. By June, he was running again, chasing the barn cats racing Lily across the yard. By July, the limp was gone entirely, leaving only a scar that he showed off to anyone who'd look. "I got shot saving my sister," he'd tell the children of neighboring ranchers when they visited. "The bullet went right through my leg. There was blood everywhere. But I didn't cry. Well, maybe a little. But mostly I was brave." Jesse watched these performances with a mix of amusement and pride. The boy had grown so much in the past months, not just physically, though he'd shot up 2 inches since spring. There was a confidence in him now, a steadiness that hadn't been there before. "He's going to be a good man," Jesse told Clara one evening. "Got his father's courage and his mother's heart. He's got a lot of you in him too, the way he carries himself, the way he talks to his sisters." Clara smiled. "He watches you, you know. Copies the way you walk, the way you hold your coffee cup. Grace teases him about it. He could have worse role models. He couldn't have a better one." They were sitting on the new porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of fire and gold. The new barn stood solid behind them, bigger than the old one built to last. The cattle were fat and healthy. The horses had recovered from the trauma of the fire and were gentle as lambs. Life against all odds was good. "I have something to tell you," Clara said. Jesse looked at her. There was something in her voice, something he couldn't quite read. "What is it?" Clara took his hand, placed it on her stomach. "We're going to have a baby." For a moment Jesse couldn't process the words. They hung in the air, impossible and miraculous and terrifying all at once. "A baby. I saw Doc Williams last week when I went to town for supplies. He confirmed it. I'm about 2 months along. The baby should come in January." Jesse stared at her stomach, at his hand resting there at the place where new life was growing. "A baby," he repeated, and this time his voice cracked. "Are you happy?" "Happy." The word seemed inadequate. He thought of Daniel, of the tiny hand that had gripped his finger at birth, of the weight of his son in his arms. He thought of the grave under the oak tree, of the family he'd lost, of the 3 years he'd spent convinced he'd never feel joy again. And now this, new life, a second chance he'd never expected and didn't deserve. "I'm terrified," he said honestly. "And grateful. And overwhelmed. And yes, happy. So happy I don't know what to do with it." Clara was crying. "I was afraid you might not want after everything you've been through." "Clara." He cupped her face in his hands. "I want this. I want everything with you. A baby, a dozen babies, a lifetime of moments just like this one." He kissed her softly. "You've given me back my life. You've given me a family. And now you're giving me this. We're giving each other this. Together." They sat there as the sun disappeared and the stars emerged, holding each other, holding on to hope, holding on to a future they were building one day at a time. The children's reactions were immediate and varied. Sam wanted to know if it would be a boy. He already had enough sisters, he explained, and could really use a brother for backup. Lily wanted to know if she could name it. She had a list of suggestions, most of them borrowed from her barn cats. Whiskers Thornton had a nice ring to it, she thought. Rose didn't fully understand what was happening, but she understood that Mama was growing a baby in her tummy, and she insisted on kissing Clara's stomach every night before bed to say goodnight to her new sibling. And Grace simply smiled, hugged Clara tight, and whispered, "I'm happy for you, Mama, for both of you." That night, Jesse lay awake long after Clara had fallen asleep, his hand resting on her stomach, feeling for movement that wouldn't come for months yet. He thought about Mary, about how excited she'd been when she discovered she was pregnant with Daniel, about the plans they'd made, the dreams they'd shared, the future that had been stolen from them by a disease no one could stop. For a moment, the old fear crept in. What if something went wrong? What if he lost Clara the way he'd lost Mary? What if this new baby never drew breath, or drew breath only to have it stolen away? He'd learned that happiness was fragile, that love could be taken in an instant, That no amount of wanting could protect the people you cared about from the cruel randomness of the world. But he'd also learned something else. That fear couldn't stop loss. That hiding from love didn't protect you from pain. That the only real choice was between living fully and not living at all. Clara stirred beside him, opened her eyes. "You're thinking too loud," she murmured. "I can hear it from here." "Sorry." "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Everything. I don't know." Jessie pulled her closer. "I'm scared of loving this much. Scared of having this much to lose." "I know." Clara nestled into him. "I'm scared too. But you know what?" "What?" "I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." Jessie kissed her hair. "When did you get so wise?" "Somewhere between marrying a stranger and killing a man who tried to murder my family." She laughed softly. "Life has a way of educating you." "That it does." They fell asleep tangled together, two people who'd been broken and rebuilt, carrying scars that would never fully fade, facing a future that held no guarantees. But facing it together. And sometimes that was enough. The summer stretched on golden and warm. Jessie expanded the ranch, bought more cattle, hired a hand to help with the work. Clara started teaching again, holding classes in the main room 3 days a week, for the children of nearby ranches. Grace assisted patient and capable, already showing signs of the woman she would become. Sam learned to rope properly, could hit a fence post at 30 feet 9 times out of 10. Lily covered every available surface with her drawings, working through the darkness, one picture at a time. Rose gave up her nightmares, started sleeping through the night, began to smile again. And Clara grew round with new life, radiant and beautiful, complaining about swollen ankles and strange cravings, and Jessie's overprotective hovering. "I'm pregnant, not dying," she told him after he'd insisted on carrying her water bucket for the 3rd time that day. "You're carrying my child. I'm allowed to be careful." "You're allowed to be reasonable. There's a difference." "I don't know this word reasonable. Is it like overprotective? Because I've heard that one before." Clara threw a dish towel at him. He caught it, grinning. "I love you," he said. "You'd better. I'm getting fat for you." "You're not fat. You're magnificent." "You're a terrible liar. But I love you anyway." These were the moments Jessie held on to. The small ones. The quiet ones. The moments that didn't seem important until you realized they were the only things that mattered. A wife who threw dish towels and called him a liar and meant it as love. 4 children who'd claimed him as their own. A baby growing in the warmth of Clara's body. A home that had survived fire and violence and emerged stronger. This was what he'd been running toward all along. He just hadn't known it until he found it. And now that he had it, he was never letting go. The first snow of winter came early that year, blanketing the valley in white before October had even ended. Jessie stood at the window watching the flakes drift down, thinking about everything that had changed since the last time snow had fallen. A year ago, he'd been a ghost drifting through life, convinced he'd never feel anything again. Now, he had a wife sleeping in the next room, 4 children who called him Pa, and another on the way. "You're brooding again." Clara's voice came from behind him, warm with affection and mild annoyance. He turned to find her wrapped in a quilt, her belly round beneath the fabric, her hair mussed from sleep. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About how different everything is. How different I am." He crossed to her, pulled her close as much as her belly would allow. "A year ago, I was ready to die. Now I'm terrified of dying because I've got too much to live for." "That's not brooding, that's growth." Clara smiled up at him. "I'm proud of you, Jessie Thornton." "For what?" "For staying, for fighting, for letting yourself love again, even when it scared you." She pressed a kiss to his jaw. "For being the man my children needed, the man I needed." "You make it sound like I had a choice." "You did. You always did. And you chose us." Jesse thought about that, about the moment in the general store when he'd heard Clara's voice and something inside him had shifted, about the decision to stay, to fight, to offer his name and his protection to a woman he barely knew, about all the choices, since then small and large, that had led him here. "Best choice I ever made," he said. "Better than the ugly hat. Mary never let me live that hat down, you know. Brought it up at every opportunity." "Smart woman." Clara laughed, then winced, her hand going to her belly. Jesse tensed. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Baby's just kicking." She took his hand, placed it where hers had been. "Feel that." He felt it. A flutter of movement beneath his palm, tiny but unmistakable. Life growing and moving and preparing to enter the world. "Strong kick," he said, his voice rough. "Takes after his father." "Or her father. You want a girl? I want healthy. Boy-girl doesn't matter. Just healthy." Clara's expression softened. "It's okay to want things, Jesse. It's okay to hope." "I know, He struggled to find the words. "Last time I hoped this much, everything fell apart. I'm trying to believe this time will be different, but part of me keeps waiting for the other shoe to drop." "Maybe there's no other shoe. Maybe we've already had all the shoes dropped on us that one family can handle, and now it's just good things from here on out." "You really believe that?" "I have to." Clara cupped his face in her hands. "Because if I don't believe in good things, I'll spend the rest of my life being afraid. And I'm tired of being afraid, Jesse. I want to be happy. I want to enjoy this baby, and this family, and this life we've built. I don't want to waste it worrying about what might go wrong." Jesse pulled her close, breathed in the scent of her hair, felt the baby kick against his stomach. "Okay," he said. "No more worrying. Just living. That's all I ask." The children adapted to the coming change in their own ways. Sam appointed himself the baby's official protector, announcing that he would teach his new sibling everything he knew about horses and roping and being brave. He'd already picked out a spot in his room where the baby's cradle could go, assuming it was a boy. If it was a girl, he supposed Lily could have her. Lily spent hours drawing pictures for the baby. The walls of the nursery, a small room Jesse had added onto the house, were covered in her artwork. Flowers and animals and family portraits, all rendered in her distinctive style. She'd also started knitting with varying degrees of success, producing a small mountain of lumpy blankets that Clara assured her were perfect. Rose was excited in the abstract way of 3-year-olds who didn't quite understand what was happening. She knew there was a baby in Mama's tummy. She knew the baby would come out eventually. Beyond that, the details were fuzzy. But she'd started carrying Dolly around more carefully, practicing being gentle, and she'd asked Clara at least a dozen times if the baby would like tea parties. And Grace had taken on a new role entirely. She'd become Clara's shadow, helping with chores, watching for signs of fatigue, insisting her mother rest when she'd been on her feet too long. The girl who'd once kept everyone at arm's length now hovered close, protective and attentive. "You don't have to do so much," Clara told her one afternoon. "I'm pregnant, not helpless." "I know." Grace continued folding laundry, her movements precise and efficient. "But you took care of us alone for 2 years. Let me take care of you for a while." Clara's eyes welled with tears. Pregnancy hormones, she told herself, even though she knew it was more than that. "When did you grow up so much?" "Somewhere between the fire and now." Grace smiled, a real smile, one that reached her eyes. "You and Jesse always say I'm strong. Maybe I'm starting to believe it." "You are strong. You always have been." "I didn't feel strong. I felt scared and angry and broken." Grace set down the shirt she was folding. "But you know what I figured out." "What?" "Strong doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing the right thing anyway. It means falling apart and putting yourself back together. It means loving people even when you're afraid of losing them." Grace's voice was steady. "You taught me that, Mama. You and Jesse both." Clara pulled her daughter into a hug, holding her as tight as her belly would allow. I love you, Grace. I'm so proud of the person you're becoming. I love you too, Mama. And I love Jesse. And this family. Grace pulled back, wiped her eyes. Even Sam most of the time. I heard that. Sam's voice drifted in from the other room. You were supposed to... Clara laughed. And the sound filled the house warm and bright and full of life. The baby came on a January night so cold, the water in the horse's trough froze solid. Clara's labor started just after supper, a sharp pain that made her gasp and grab Jesse's arm. He'd been through this before with Mary, but that knowledge didn't make him any calmer. If anything, it made him worse. He knew everything that could go wrong. Get Doc Williams, he told Grace, his voice tight. Ride fast. I'll go too, Sam said, already reaching for his coat. No, you stay here. Help me keep your mother comfortable. But, Sam, Jesse's voice was sharp. I need you here. Can I count on you? The boy straightened. Yes, sir. Grace was out the door and riding before Jesse could say anything else. The girl could handle a horse as well as any ranch hand, and she knew the way to town. She'd be back with the doctor within the hour, if the hour was all they had. Clara's contractions came faster and harder as the night wore on. She gripped Jesse's hand with surprising strength, her face pale and sweating despite the cold. Between pains, she tried to smile, tried to reassure him that everything was fine. I've done this 4 times before, remember? That doesn't make me less scared. I know. She squeezed his hand. But I need you to be calm, Jesse. For me. For the children. He tried. God help him, he tried. But every time she cried out, every time her face contorted with pain, he felt his heart stop. This was the moment he'd been dreading. The moment when everything could be taken away again. The moment when hope could turn to ash. Doc Williams arrived just before midnight, Grace close behind him. The old man took one look at Clara, rolled up his sleeves, and got to work. Everyone out except Jesse, he ordered. Grace, take the children to the other room. Keep them calm. Will Mama be okay? Lily's voice was small and frightened. Your Mama's going to be just fine, but she needs quiet and space to do her work. Can you give her that? Lily nodded, clutching Sam's hand. Rose was already asleep on the settee, oblivious to the chaos. Grace herded her siblings away, pausing at the door to meet Jesse's eyes. The question was clear. Is she really going to be okay? Jesse nodded, hoping he wasn't lying. The next 3 hours were the longest of his life. Clara labored in waves, each contraction bringing her closer to the end. Doc Williams monitored her progress, murmuring reassurances, adjusting her position when needed. Jesse held her hand, wiped her brow, told her over and over that she was doing so well, that he was so proud of her, that he loved her more than words could say. I'm tired. Clara gasped between pains. Jesse, I'm so tired. I know, sweetheart. I know. But you're almost there. Just a little more. I can't. Yes, you can. You're the strongest person I know, Clara Thornton. You survived Crane. You survived the fire. You can survive this. She laughed weakly. You're comparing childbirth to a murderous banker. I'm comparing you to a force of nature. Now push. She pushed. The baby entered the world just as the clock struck 3 in the morning, squalling and red-faced and perfect. Doc Williams caught the tiny body, cleared the airways, and placed the baby on Clara's chest. It's a boy, he announced. A healthy, beautiful boy. Clara was crying, laughing, holding her son with trembling arms. Jesse stood frozen, unable to process what he was seeing. A boy. His boy. Their boy. Jesse. Clara's voice was thick with tears. Jesse, look at him. He looked, and fell in love all over again. The baby was tiny, barely bigger than Jesse's 2 hands put together. He had a shock of dark hair. Clara's hair, and when he opened his eyes, they were gray. Jesse's eyes. He looks like you, Clara whispered. He looks like a miracle. Jesse touched his son's cheek, felt the impossibly soft skin, watched the tiny mouth yawn. I didn't think I never thought. He couldn't finish, couldn't find words big enough for what he was feeling. What should we name him? Clara asked. Jessie thought about it. Thought about Daniel buried under the oak tree 1,000 miles away. Thought about Thomas, Clara's first husband, who'd given her 4 beautiful children before the mine took him. Thought about all the ghosts they carried, all the love they'd lost. Thomas Daniel Thornton, he said, for the fathers who came before. Clara's eyes filled with fresh tears. That's perfect. Can we come in now? Sam's voice drifted through the door, barely controlled impatience. Yes, Clara called. Come meet your brother. The door burst open and the children tumbled in. Sam got there first, skidding to a stop beside the bed, eyes wide. He's so small. He'll grow. Jessie lifted Sam so he could see better. What do you think? He looks wrinkly. All babies look wrinkly at first. Will he always be this loud? Probably. Sam considered this. That's okay. I can teach him to be quiet when we're hunting. Lily pushed forward, standing on tiptoe to peer at the bundle in Clara's arms. He's beautiful, Mama. Can I draw him? Of course, sweetheart. I'm going to draw him every day until he's big. Then I'll show him all the pictures so he can see how much he grew. Rose, still half asleep, was carried in by Grace. The little girl looked at the baby with bleary confusion. That's the tummy baby. That's him, Clara said gently. Your new brother, Thomas. Rose reached out, a tiny finger touched the baby's hand. Thomas grabbed it, held on tight. He likes me, Rose announced, suddenly wide awake. Dolly, look, the baby likes me. And Grace stood back, watching her family crowd around the newest member, a small smile on her face. Jessie caught her eye. You okay? Yeah. Her smile widened. I'm really okay. The weeks that followed were a blur of sleepless nights and dirty diapers and the endless, exhausting, wonderful work of caring for a newborn. Thomas was a good baby as babies went. He slept in stretches, nursed well, and only cried when he needed something. But he was still a baby, and babies required attention around the clock. Jessie took on as much as he could, walking Thomas through the house when he fussed, changing diapers, bringing him to Clara for feedings. The children helped too in their own ways. Sam fetched and carried. Lily sang lullabies. Rose insisted on reading Thomas her favorite stories, even though he couldn't understand a word. And Grace became indispensable. She cooked meals, managed the household, kept the younger children occupied when Clara needed rest. She'd grown into her role so completely that it was hard to remember the broken girl she'd been just months ago. I couldn't do this without you, Clara told her one morning. I want you to know that. You did it without anyone for 2 years, Grace pointed out. That was different. That was survival. This is living. Clara hugged her daughter with one arm, Thomas cradled in the other. And living is better when you've got people to share it with. I'm glad you married Jessie, Grace said quietly. I know I didn't make it easy at first. I was so angry and scared and I took it out on him. But he never gave up on me. He just kept being kind and patient and there. That's who he is. I know, and I'm grateful for it. Grace pulled back, looked at her mother with eyes that held none of the emptiness they'd held before. I'm grateful for all of it, even the hard parts, because the hard parts made us who we are. Spring came slowly then, all at once. One day there was snow on the ground. The next there were flowers blooming in the meadow. The cattle grew fat. The horses ran free. And Thomas, now 3 months old, smiled for the first time. Jessie was holding him when it happened. One moment the baby was staring at him with that serious infant expression. The next his face split into a gummy grin that hit Jessie like a punch to the heart. Clara. His voice cracked. Clara, come quick. She came running, expecting disaster, and found her husband standing in the middle of the room with tears streaming down his face. He smiled, Jessie said. He smiled at me. Clara looked at her son, at her husband, at the joy radiating from both of them. I see that. He smiled. Clara. My boy smiled at me. Jesse babies smile all the time. Not at me, Daniel. He stopped, swallowed hard. Daniel died before he could smile. I never got to see, Clara understood then. This wasn't just a smile. This was a milestone Jesse had missed with his first son. A milestone he'd never thought he'd experience. She wrapped her arms around him, around Thomas, held them both close. You're a good father, she whispered. You always were. And now you get to be one again. I don't deserve this. His voice was rough. I don't deserve any of this. Yes, you do. You deserve every bit of happiness that comes your way. She pulled back, looked into his eyes. Do you remember what you told me the day you proposed? You said you wanted a chance to prove you were worth keeping. I remember. You've proved it, 100 times over. You've proved it every single day. Clara smiled, touched his face. So stop thinking you don't deserve things and start enjoying them. That's an order. Jesse laughed through his tears. Yes, ma'am. Thomas smiled again, and this time Jesse didn't cry. He just smiled back at his son and held him close and let himself feel happy without guilt or fear. It was, he realized, the first time he'd done that in years. The summer Jesse turned 40, Clara threw him a birthday party. It wasn't anything fancy. Just family and neighbors gathered in the yard, food spread on tables, children running everywhere. But to Jesse, who'd spent 3 birthdays alone on the trail, it was overwhelming. You didn't have to do this, he told Clara, watching Sam organize a horse race for the neighbor kids. I wanted to. She linked her arm through his. You've given us so much. Let us give you something back. You give me something every day, just by being here. That's not giving, that's existing. Clara grinned. This is giving. Martha Holbrook approached Thomas, bouncing in her arms. The boarding house owner had become a regular visitor, making the 3-hour trip from Silver Creek at least once a month. This boy is getting too big, she complained, handing Thomas to Jesse. What are you feeding him? Love, Jesse said, settling his son against his shoulder. And Clara's cooking. Mostly the cooking, Clara added. The love is just a bonus. Thomas grabbed Jesse's collar, pulled himself up, and planted a wet, open-mouthed kiss on his father's cheek. See. Martha beamed. That boy knows who his daddy is. Never any doubt about that, Clara said softly. Later, after the neighbors had gone home, and the children were exhausted from a day of playing, Jesse sat on the porch with Clara and watched the sun set over the mountains. Thomas was asleep in his arms. Sam had passed out on the settee inside. Lily was sketching by candlelight, too wired to sleep. Rose was curled up with her cats and Dolly, and Grace was readings by the fire, looking up occasionally to check on her siblings. What are you thinking about? Clara asked. Everything. Nothing. Jesse adjusted Thomas's blanket. I keep waiting to wake up. From what? From this, from you, from all of it. He looked at her. My life before the life I lived before I rode into Silver Creek, it wasn't a life. It was an existence. I was breathing, moving, taking up space. But I wasn't alive. And now? Now I'm so alive it scares me sometimes. There's so much to feel, so much to lose. He reached for her hand. But I wouldn't trade it. Not for anything. Not even for a life without fear. Fear means you've got something worth protecting. Jessie squeezed her hand. I'll take fear over emptiness any day. Clara leaned into him, her head on his shoulder, and they sat in comfortable silence as the stars emerged. Thank you, she said finally. For what? For riding into town that day. For standing up to Crane. For proposing to a stranger and meaning every word. She looked up at him. For giving me back my life. You gave me back mine. Seems like a fair trade. More than fair. Thomas stirred, opened his eyes, looked around with that peculiar infant alertness. Then he saw Jesse's face and smiled, that gummy, heart-stopping smile that never failed to undo his father completely. "Pa," Sam's voice drifted out from inside. "Lily's hogging the candle. Am not. Are two children." Clara sighed. "The romance never stops." "I don't know," Jesse said, pulling her close despite the baby between them. "I think it's pretty romantic. Constant noise and sibling squabbles. Family, life, a house full of people who love each other." He kissed her forehead. "That's the most romantic thing I can imagine." 10 years later, Jesse would look back on this moment and remember it as the night everything clicked into place. The night he stopped waiting for disaster and started trusting in joy. But that was later. That night, he simply held his wife and his son, listened to his children bicker and laugh, and let himself believe in happy endings. The years passed like seasons, each one bringing changes both expected and surprising. Sam grew tall and strong, became the best horseman in 3 counties, and eventually took over running the ranch so Jesse could slow down. He married a school teacher's daughter, and their first child, a boy named Jesse Thomas, arrived on Christmas Day. Lily's drawings became paintings, then illustrations for books published in Denver and San Francisco. She never married, never wanted to, but she had more admirers than she could count, and a studio full of light where she created beauty every day. Rose grew out of her nightmares, though she kept Dolly on her shelf until the day she died. She became a nurse, moved to a city, and returned every summer with stories that made her siblings laugh and cry and shake their heads in wonder. Grace became exactly who Clara always knew she could be: strong, capable, fiercely loving. She married a man who looked at her the way Jesse looked at Clara, and together they raised 6 children who called Jesse Grandpa and climbed into his lap for stories. And Thomas the boy, born in the coldest night of the coldest winter, grew into a man with his mother's heart and his father's stubbornness. He became a lawyer, fought for people who couldn't fight for themselves, and never forgot where he came from. Clara and Jesse grew old together the way they'd promised they would. They argued and made up, laughed and cried, held each other through sickness and celebrated health. Their hair went gray, then white. Their steps slowed. Their memories of the early days grew soft around the edges. But some things never faded. On a summer evening, 50 years after Jesse had ridden into Silver Creek, he sat on the porch of the same house he'd built, watching the sunset paint the mountains in familiar shades of gold and rose. Clara sat beside him, her hand in his, just as it had been for half a century. "Do you remember," she asked, "the first thing you said to me?" Jesse thought back. Through the years, the children, the grandchildren, the life they'd built together. "Lady said no," he quoted. "That's what I told Crane. Lady said no. And then you put yourself between me and a man who wanted to destroy me." Clara smiled, her face lined with age, but still beautiful. "I knew right then." "Knew what?" "That you were different. That you were worth taking a chance on." She squeezed his hand. "I was right. You usually are. Don't you forget it." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the light change, listening to the sounds of the ranch, the cattle lowing, the horses in the corral, the distant laughter of grandchildren playing somewhere out of sight. "I had a dream last night," Jesse said, "about Mary and Daniel." Clara looked at him. They could talk about the first family now without pain. Time had softened the grief into something gentler. "What happened in the dream?" "We were all together. You, me, Mary, Daniel, all the kids, having dinner around one big table." Jesse's voice was thoughtful. "And it wasn't strange. It wasn't awkward. It was just family. All of us loving each other the way family does." "That's a beautiful dream." It was. He turned to look at her, this woman who'd saved him without knowing she was doing it. "I used to think loving again meant betraying them, Mary and Daniel. Like I was replacing them or forgetting them. And now, Now I know better. Love isn't a finite thing. It doesn't run out. The love I have for you doesn't take away from the love I had for Mary. It just adds to it, makes it bigger. He brought her hand to his lips. I've got so much love in my heart now there's barely room for anything else. Clara's eyes were wet. Jesse Thornton, after 50 years, you still know how to make me cry. It's a gift. She laughed, wiped her eyes, and leaned into him the way she'd done 10,000 times before. Any regrets? She asked. Not one. Not even the ugly hat. Jesse laughed, a sound that came easier now than it ever had. Okay, maybe one regret, but just the one. The sun dipped below the mountains. The sky turned purple, then dark. The stars emerged, the same stars that had watched over them from the very beginning. And Jesse Thornton, who had once been a ghost with nothing left to live for, held his wife close and thanked God for second chances. He'd ridden into Silver Creek for rope and tobacco. He'd left with a family, a purpose, and a love that had carried him through darkness into light. Some might call it luck. Some might call it fate. Jesse called it the best decision he'd ever made. And he'd spend every day of his life being grateful for it. Because in the end, that was what it all came down to. Not the ranch or the money or the years. Not the battles won or the enemies defeated. Just this, a family who loved each other, a home built on hope, and the simple, profound miracle of not having to face the world alone. Jesse Thornton had found what he didn't know he was looking for, and he was never letting go.